This channel is made possible by viewers like you. My viewers, subscribers, and patrons greatly help to keep this channel going. I wouldn't be here today if it wasn't for all of you. Please make sure to subscribe so you don't miss any uploads. And if you'd like to go the extra mile, please check out my Patreon page. For just $1 a month, you'll get access to what I'm working on, previews of upcoming content, and even early videos, along with other tier options for those that are interested. Thank you, and now on to the video. I feel like I'm being flooded by all of the indies that I'm currently playing. Another one that has crossed my path is called Iron Meat, and here we have a game that is easily Game of the Year material. I picked it up and it brings me back to the good old days of playing within the arcade, getting smacked down by plenty of quarter munchers, but most of all, those games were a lot of fun, and so is this title. Here we have a game that feels like the spiritual successor to Contra or Metal Slug, and while we were already blessed with a really good Contra game this year, this new indie shows that you cannot have enough Contra. If a style is good and a new studio manages to deliver at providing their own take and style, then I'm all in. Iron Meat is a great indie. Something I want to make note of as well is that there is a set of players out there that miss the days of men being men. You know, like awesome action movie stars that we saw in the 80s. Big muscles, lots of action, and all around lots of fun. Iron Meat very much brings us back to that time. You feel like you were transported back and all done in this classic gameplay style. You can't put this down. Not because of some piece of loot, progression meters, or anything like that, but because of the gameplay. You hit start, it's fun. You keep going, and it continues to be fun. I mentioned in one of my Space Marine videos that the game reminded me a bit of the Gears of War time in games. I hadn't really seen anything that unabashedly masculine since then. I would add Iron Meat into the mix as well. There's no agenda pushing here or pretentious stories, with long-winded talking bits. Here you get action and you get a lot of it. So how is Iron Meat even played? Well, have you ever played Metal Slug or Contra before? If so, then you know what you're getting into with this game. If you haven't, what are you doing with your life? You need to play those games. Arcade action is what this game is all about. This is very much a title that you would have found within the arcades. Pop in a quarter and have a great time, either by yourself, with a buddy, or a random stranger you met at the arcade. The action is delightfully violent, bloody, and just very, very chunky. This is very old school. You die in one hit and then you're thrown back in. I do want to clarify as well that I'm not good at these types of games, but I very much enjoyed playing them, and I spent most of my time with this title on easy, and I found that outside of maybe one stage, I was able to get through the entire game with plenty of spare lives. I do like that there are options here for players, because this means that ones of different skill ranges can enjoy this title and see it to the very end. So if you're very interested in this game, but you are worried that it's going to be too hard for your taste, know that coming from someone with a very low skill set for these games, I had a great time here, and I wanted to go back in for seconds. Along with this, with Iron Meat having those difficulty options, this means that when you replay the game, you can go back in and try for a harder difficulty, maybe challenge yourself and really bump that up. So yes, you go through a series of levels blasting everything that you come across. You can hold 2 different weapons and switch to them on the fly. You'll have everything from shotguns to railguns. The trick is, if you die, the gun you're holding is gone until you find it again. If you manage to switch your gun before you die, you're not going to lose that one that you had in reserve. This can be really helpful for some of the challenging boss fights. Levels come in all different kinds of variety, from stages where you're trying to just get to the leftmost exit, others where it's all vertical, an elevator level, and later on ones that are more zoomed out. The same goes for the boss fights. Generally, these are all really fun. Shoot the big spot on them until they are dead. Sometimes you need to hit some of the smaller bits or turrets to take them out as well. The final one is a real treat, and it's highly inspired by Terminator. Even the soundtrack does a little riff on this too. This game is a ride. It moves at this lightning pace. You are always shooting something, and it's very engaging the entire time. It felt like the only time you get a breather is when you're loading into another stage. It checks all the right boxes, hits many of the expected beats, and most of all, it's done really well. This is not a soulless copycat, but rather something that is a love letter to its inspirations and wears all of its influences on its sleeve. This is the kind of nostalgic game that we want. Something that feels older, even looks older, and is very much able to capture what we loved about those classic games. And yes, you can play the game in local co-op play as well. Before we move to the conclusion, I want to mention the soundtrack. Each of these stages are full of memorable tunes. Here are a few tracks from the game. Something I always found interesting within the indie space is how these smaller and very talented developers are able to come in here and provide something to an audience that seems to be ignored. Looking back just a few years ago, Konami was not interested in making many video games that they had the licenses to, and they had some of the best with Castlevania and especially Contra. This results in indie developers sort of seeing a hole within the market, and then we get these new fresh games that retain that style of what we loved, and now with a new set of games that takes them on. The best of the bunch manages to command that respect and knowledge of the legacy that they are inspired by. While this video is focused on Iron Meat, I do want to give a mention to Blazing Chrome, because it came during a time where we had that drought of no new good Contra games. Oddly enough, this year we actually got a good Contra game from WayForward, and it was published by Konami. I am glad that they have sort of flipped in the other direction to keep developing games for their great series that they have. And I think Iron Meat is sort of a product of it all. Players want good Contra games, and they want more of them. These arcade-like titles are the perfect kind of game to enjoy on a Friday night, with friends, and I grew up on many of this stuff, and it really transported me back. From the look and sound to the absolute great minute-to-minute gameplay, I was absorbed by what Iron Meat had to provide. This might go into my top tier of indie games that I have played. I am blown away by this title, and I cannot wait to see what this developer does next. Iron Meat is easily true Game of the Year material. This isn't a pretentious piece of entertainment, trying to push weird values onto the player. This is 80s entertainment, focused on giving the player the best possible game that they could have. This is truly an awesome experience. I highly recommend Iron Meat. Have you played Iron Meat? What are some other indies you love this year? Let me know in the comments down below. If you're interested in supporting the channel, please check out my Patreon page. For just $1 a month, you can help to keep this channel going strong, and this allows me to be able to do more for my awesome audience. Please check out the links in the description and pinned comment for ways to support the channel. And most of all, thank you very much for watching.